Welcome to Budget Workshop number 3. Can everyone rise for the pledge of
Just a couple of months. Tax levy threshold. So we've been through this a couple of times. It's an 8-part calculation for the tax cap. Our tax cap this year is 4.37%, primarily due to carryover that we had from the prior year, because last year our tax levy was flat, 0, and our tax cap was about 3.5%. So some of that money was able to be carried over into this year's tax cap at 4.37%. Our tax levy won't be anywhere near that. I'll discuss that a little later on in the presentation, and certainly more in depth at the next budget presentation. This year, some of the challenges we're facing on the budget side, on the expenditure side, are significant increases in health insurance premiums. Again, later on in the presentation, I'll discuss that in a little more detail. Transportation costs, Lorianne will discuss that a little later.
Can't wait.
And overall inflation. Again, our tax levy certainly won't be flat this year, but it won't be at the 4.37%. These are some of the budget strategies. We have long-term goals that we have in place, specifically with capital. Here's a little history of our prior authorizations. Capital reserves 1, 2, and 3 have been each authorized to fund and spend at this point. Capital Reserve 4 has a balance of $6.4 million in it. And last May, we authorized Capital Reserve 5 for $20 million. Currently, there's no balance in that particular reserve.
Victor, can
Yep.
you explain? So capital, let me go back. So capital reserves 1 and 2 have been fully funded and authorized at 10 million. So does that mean that they've also been spent? Because then you say capital reserve 4 has 6.4 million left. So
Yeah, so capital reserves 1, 2, and 3 have been fully funded and fully authorized to spend. And what that means, when it's spent out of the general fund, that's when the proposition takes place. We transfer it to the capital fund, and then it takes 2, 3, 4 years to spend it because of projects that we have.
So it's allocated.
It's allocated.
Allocated, okay.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily spent.
Not necessarily,
So
but
the 6.4 million.
the 6.4 million
is not
is
yet
still,
allocated,
is
although-
not
Although that's going to be later in the presentation that you're allocating it.
correct. It's fully funded. We can't put any more money in that particular reserve, but there's 6.4 million left in that, and in a few slides you'll see
Right.
what
I
we're
just
doing.
wasn't not sure between the spending and the allocating.
Yeah. Skip that. These are some of the projects that are planned for this coming summer and the school year. Roof replacement at portions of the high school and the middle school, district-wide rooftop units. Rooftop units are the air conditioning units that sit on top of the roof. We still have some old ones that need to be replaced. The outdoor canopy right over here is not in good shape. So we're looking to replace that along with the canopy in front of administration and the canopy over here. Middle school science and art room renovations. So that's a good example of a proposition from 2 years ago, but during the summer, you have to pick what you can do in a particular year. This way, you have to open on time, etc. So we held off on that one for a year. This way, we could do the work during this coming summer. Window replacement around original part of the high school, middle school building. The original part is around like the little theater and the principal's office, that side. And district-wide gym door partition replacements. Following, these will go quick, the capital slides that we're looking for this year's proposition to authorize spending of the balance of the $6.4 million. And it's primarily at each of the buildings as a common theme, window replacements as well as bathroom renovations throughout Caniac, bathroom renovations at Jackson, as well as Seaman, a small project over at Williams, and then bathroom renovations, window replacement phases in this building, along with the music classroom reconstruction. Those total, the highlighted items total $8.5 million. And that will be funded in a couple of ways. One, through the transfer to capital line in the general fund, $1,275,000. And then the balance, $7.2 million out of capital reserve 4, and fund balance, Jill, thank you for pointing that out. And in this slide, this will be the actual proposition that will show on the ballot. And that's how it'll read, and it'll provide the specifics on the dollar amounts. So although there's $6.4 million left at the end of June last year, I have $6,543,795. That assumes interest earned over the past year, and with interest rates up right now, we're estimating that dollar amount. These are just future capital plans, looking to continue the capital reserves if we can, and constantly do an annual visual inspection, and next year we're due for the full building condition survey. All right, moving on to, well, before we leave that, any other questions on capital?
Are we gonna pave the driveway between the front circle and the back,
Between this front circle?
going around towards going around towards the field house? Is that what one?
Didn't we do that,
Which circle?
Like when you drive in off of 107, you make the right at the, you come in through the
Oh,
light,
yeah.
and then you come all the way around to go to the field house.
That's that end, that's 106. It's over
I
106.
mean, I don't know where we are, so I'm just saying, from the circle to the field house.
And you go to.
Are we
back-
paving
go
that
around
this-
back by the-
The bus circle and the parking lot over here as well.
The bus circle around the field house?
Not around the field house, but going around to the middle school side. From here.
Upper Road.
Yeah, we're going around to the middle school.
when you're
side.
passing the visitor's lot over here?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you pass the
Visitor's lot,
visitor's
yeah.
lot, then you pass by Lori Ann's house and stuff, where the big,
Correct.
there's a big pop.
the Upper Road.
Correct, yes.
That one's getting paved this
Yeah.
summer. Okay.
Are we putting speed bumps there too?
Oh, I have
course.
speed bumps.
That's sweet.
I don't have speed bumps.
Not the
with-
big yellow ones like we have at the entrance.
You like
to
those,
106.
You want them higher?
Any other questions on capital? Okay, we'll move on. Next, as we get into the general instruction, we first look at enrollment projections. The column on the left are the actual enrollment as of October 2022, and the right side are based on the BOCES demographer estimates for next year.
Does that take into account the increases that we had this year?
No.
Now, so right now, we're over 3,300. So the demographers, where's Ben? BOCES demographers report, when do they do that?
October of each year?
They do it in October, but that's when this was done.
So do you base the budget on that number or more
We-
realistic number?
We usually base it on what, like, when we're looking at sections, when we meet with the high school, middle school staff and the elementary principals, we're basing it on what are we seeing right now? How many kids do you have in your classes right now? And what's in, I don't want to say the word jeopardy, but what's close to breaking? And we're looking at that now. So we just had a meeting 2 days ago on the secondary. You know, it's a little early because they haven't done schedules yet. But, you know, we're trying to get estimates. But the elementary schools, I think there is one grade and fourth grade Caniac, one of the Caniacs that have 24 each. So that's one that will probably break for next year. But yeah, we look at it based on,
When we look at the elementary staffing, we look at, again, current numbers, and we know typically where we're gonna grow between March and September. So we allocate, Victor and Ben allocate staffing to accommodate, so where we have 24s, we're already +1 in those situations.
and the same with sixth grade, because sixth grade is basically you're dividing it by the number of students. So we're looking at the current fifth grades, rolling up to sixth grade, and how many sections.
And we this week just added a section to sixth grade as we're looking at the numbers that have grown through the year,
So that's irrelevant.
Well,
outdated.
Outdated, yeah, that's that.
yeah, I don't want to say irrelevant. That's the one I use because that's the only, you know, formal document that we have. As far as gen ed staffing, we went, as we looked through everything and looked at the staffing numbers at the elementary level, the secondary level, we're keeping budget FTEs pretty flat for next year. I know Hank just said that the sixth grade, we grew one, but we do build in contingencies, and that's gonna be one of the contingencies.
What is? You don't have any change there. You gotta build that. in.
I built contingencies in, that's built in.
But it says no change in FTEs.
Budget, like budget to budget, I assume the same FTEs, but I always build in contingencies above and beyond that.
In the budget
Meaning
book.
that, meaning that the cost line will be higher, but the FTEs will remain flat. Is that what you're saying when you say building contingencies?
I build in contingencies in the cost line, in
Okay,
the
that's-
dollars,
Got it.
and here are the dollars.
Well, that's
So
where the questions come.
Yeah.
So we can flex up if we have. Correct?
if we needed to, yeah,
Yeah.
we have flexibility in the dollars to be able to split. At the time when we did this, it was basically flat at the elementary schools and flat up here. But again, without scheduling, it's hard to specifically determine, is there an additional .2 here because some kids are taking this particular elective, et cetera.
And if you remember, going into COVID, that summer, we hired 16 teachers that we had not anticipated. So in terms of Victor's planning and having additional funds in our salary codes, that supports us for the unknown. That year, again, we hired 16 teachers that we had not planned for, and thank goodness through Victor's budgeting, we had the flexibility to be able to hire those teachers going into September.
And now that you brought that up, you could actually, in the top line for elementary K-6, if you look at the actual in 2021, that year spiked. And that was because of what we did, because of the pandemic and splitting the elementary classes to that extent. So you could see it go up, and then last year went down a little bit, because we didn't keep the 16 teachers. We still had class sizes at a max of 23, but if you remember in 2021, I think they were like class sizes of 10 or 12 at that time, and we split all the classes. Make sense? Okay. A couple of other areas. So 3 lines below that is secondary. Again, the percentage increase budget to budget is about, I'm gonna say 1.5, 1.7,
Oh, budget to budget.
Yeah.
0.92.
which one?
I'm sorry, point from secondary, 2909.
Secondary, I think overall it was like 1.5% increase in the budget
Of
of this slide.
2.2. 2.2 of all the salaries. From 125 down through aides.
Okay, I was talking about the entire slide.
Oh, yeah, I don't, the other stuff, textbooks, I
Huh.
don't. We care about our teachers.
Yes,
They're the
so,
secret.
again, we build in contingencies in the dollar amounts in the event there are splits. A couple of other areas, you'll notice the tutoring sharply increased last year. We lowered the budget a little bit based compared to the actual from last year. And we're seeing this year, it's definitely down. Compared to last year, I would estimate we'd end up being like 250,000, 300,000.
That's the tutoring for kids home?
Yes,
On.
for 5 days or more.
Okay.
A couple of other areas, professional 403B, what that is the sick day buyout for teachers when they retire. That number swings depending on how many retirements you have. And you could see there, for 1 year, it was $1 million, and the following year was 300,000. I think this year will be more than 300,000, but I don't think it will hit $1 million. We don't have that many retirees this year.
But that money's already all set aside.
That's why I don't budget for it. We have it, where it's fully funded in the FLR reserve.
For administration and teachers.
Everyone, custodians, clerical, everyone. Yeah, he's in there. Other tuition, other districts, I know this question comes up a lot. What that is, if there is a split property, sometimes the students choose to go to our district, in which we would bill the neighboring district for those taxes. And other times, that there's a small area near Roslyn, and it's literally, these people are fully in Roslyn, and these few people are split properties. They choose to go to Roslyn, so then they bill us for those split properties. And that could swing from year to year, depending on the year, so I budget about $150,000. Textbooks, pretty straightforward, no big changes there. BOCES, special services at the bottom, we decreased. I'll show you later on in the presentation, that's because of an accounting change that took place with GASB, and we had to reallocate the copiers that we leased through BOCES, we had to reallocate them, so that's why that dropped. Any questions?
Easy ones,
What do you-
textbooks. I thought we've been using more digital textbooks and started buying fewer textbooks. Is that not the case?
That is the case, and a lot of times they'll come with a class set, and sometimes we'll expend it out of here because the state aid for textbooks is based on these codes.
Okay. The elementary K-6 and the secondary
Yep.
line items of this, those are all covered by the same contract, correct?
Yes,
When does
JPA.
that contract expire?
June of '24.
And these line items are just salaries, no benefits, correct?
Correct.
That's all in the later slides
Yes.
we talk about there. The annual increase in the contract from
I think
23
the
to
23, 24, in addition to step, it's 1%.
So it's 1%, but then everybody's also got their step.
Not everybody. There's a lot of, I think, close to half the staff is on top step already.
Got it, and as we just talked about, can you just talk about overages, overtime, where that shows up, how much of this number is in there and stuff like that?
Yes, so it's not really overtime, it's overages. So if a particular teacher is a 1.0, but we're short like one section in an area, it's very difficult to hire for one section. So we will have a teacher do a 1.2. That's budgeted in here. I don't have the exact number off the top of my head, and it definitely fluctuates from year to year. So if a particular area is a 0.3 overage one year, but then you have another section and it becomes like a 0.5 or a 0.6, we'll hire for that, and then the overage goes away. So really, it depends on scheduling and where we are. It's not necessarily the same overages every year.
And everything in there is simply overages, nothing with clubs, nothing
Nope,
with.
clubs was last presentation.
And nothing, and any.
Chaperoning was last presentation.
Got it, and where those teachers are then doing the extra help or tutoring, that goes in the tutoring line, it doesn't go into the salary line.
That's correct.
And the overage process works how? That goes through just the normal scheduling at the beginning of the year to figure out what teachers. are
Yeah,
gonna do
it's-
it. The curriculum associate will pick what teachers.
Yeah, and it could be things that occur during the school year. For example, if someone goes out on maternity or something, or someone goes out on some sort of medical leave, now you have holes to fill, and there could be mid-year overages as well.
And then also, as you were talking about, the elementary the K through 6 line item from budget to budget goes up about 2.36%. That's what you're talking about when you're talking about putting in dollar cushion.
Yes.
From year to year.
Well, it's not the 2.3% that's a dollar cushion. The 2.3% part of that is increases in the 1% plus step.
Right.
But in that number, we built in contingencies, because I like that word better than cushion.
Understood.
Contingencies in the budget, in the event we have to split.
Okay, and then just to explain, to remind me, as we talked about in 2021, we hired 16 extra teachers and we had great budgeting, so we had contingencies built in.
Correct.
What happens when our contingencies run out? What, we get to the year and we're like, okay, we budgeted and we have contingencies, but we didn't contingency enough.
I'll give you a perfect example of that. Perfect illustration is the health insurance, which you'll see later on, but I think it's good to talk about now. Last year, out of the $16 million health insurance budget, we had $900,000 left over at the end of the year in that one particular health insurance line, which I thought, great job, we had a contingency and it stayed. This year, our budget will be short probably about $300,000. And I budgeted my usual contingencies, and I budgeted for a 12% increase. And it's based on calendar year. So you know the first 5 months, because it's calendar year, you don't know what the second half is going to be. In January, our monthly bill went up 18%. So that's a perfect example of we lost the contingency.
but let's say that happens and we run out of every contingency that's in our $130 million budget. And we get to it, and where does that extra money come from, come May or June of the year? Do we
That's-
take it from the
we
general
have-
reserve?
We have a 4% fund balance that we have, which helps. And when we talk about revenues, we have appropriated fund balance. And last year, when we ended up going from 1.95 to a flat tax levy, we increased the appropriated fund balance. What does that mean? So we appropriated $6.8 million towards this year's budget, plus about $500,000 in reserve. So a total of about $7.2 million of appropriated fund balance and reserves. Right off the bat, this year, I have to underexpend by at least $7.2 million in order to make up that appropriation. Okay? So although I'm hopeful that we'll underexpend this year's budget by $10 million, which would be good, 7 of it,
Really?
well, 7 of it is appropriated. So the surplus is really only 3 million. Don't shake your head, that's what it is.
It is, but it's like, yes, you're replacing an appropriated balance that was there that had been approved. for-
But the appropriated balance, you need to make up that year. If you don't make it up, you're in a deficit,
Understood.
all right? So if we underexpended by only $6 million, you think, okay, we did great. No, because we appropriated $7 million, so you're actually in a deficit at that point.
Yeah, but you have an annual deficit, but it's been funded through you just funded through your reserve for that year. And then hopefully make it up next year.
No. You don't have an,
You don't hit a wall, it's not like you're saying, okay, we're out of money.
if you have so at the end of the year, if your revenues are not higher than your expenditures, and don't forget, the revenues include appropriated fund balance, that's not a real revenue coming in,
Understood.
okay? So if you're, at the end of the day, if your revenues are not higher than your or not higher than your expenditures, you're in a deficit. And slowly, the deficit will hurt the financial health of the district,
Absolutely.
okay?
Last question on this one, and this one, I know the numbers may be specific. A year and a half ago or 2 years ago, I forget exactly what, we reduced what we thought were the proposed maximum class sizes at the elementary school. Do you have any off the top of your head, how much extra that would cost, that is costing us? And I'm in no way proposing that we go back, I'm just trying to get a quantifier when someone says, gee, this is what we're spending, say, well, you guys wanted smaller class sizes, this is how much it's costing
Yeah,
us.
I could do that, I can't do it tonight. We could just figure out how many sections we would have as the class size maximum class size of
Is
27.
that a
Don't
big
forget,
exercise or is that a little exercise? To figure that out?
it's not significant, we could figure that out. Yeah, we could figure that out. Not tonight, right? We
Oh,
could
no,
do it.
okay, yeah.
And don't forget that those class sizes were pre-pandemic, so that's like 4-year-old data at that point. I mean, but we could do it for now, just based on the number of kids. How many less sections would we,
That's it.
how many less sections would we have?
And I'm in no way thinking that we should do that, I just would love to know how much
Okay.
money, how much
But
extra money that costs.
Just so the community knows, the class sizes at the elementary level are remaining at a maximum of 23,
That's not every grade, I thought they were different.
K through 5. It used to be, K2 used to be 25, 3, 4, 5 used to be 27.
4, 5, 27.
Okay, K3 was 25,
4,
4, 5 was 27
Right,
in the past.
and now everything's flat 20.
Everything's flat 27.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, they keep saying, it says K to 6 and 7 to 12, but it's really, the buildings are K to 5.
Yeah, the state codes break it up this way.
So then, so do you have to actually, like, rejigger it, so you're putting the 6th grade teachers in with the elementary teachers? And you got-
Yes, the 6th grade teachers are in the top line.
So it's not, so you can't look at this by school, actually?
No. Instructional equipment, nothing major here. We keep the district-wide code at 40,000. That's in the event any of the buildings, fall short or something is needed. At that point, we have district-wide code to cover that. This is just a narrative of the contractual services that are on this page. And again, overall, not big dollars, a lot of lines, a lot of small amounts. Instructional supplies, slight increase for inflation, not overly significant, but pretty standard. Career education, these are our students that attend the Long Island School for the Arts program, and any of the BOCES programs, auto mechanic, et cetera. And BOCES bases it on a 3-year average of students, this way you don't spike in any one particular year.
Do we go full-time to BOCES programs?
Hank, can we go?
Half year.
I think it's half year, right?
Half day.
Okay,
And then the half day they're here?
Yes.
correct.
And that's something they apply to, or they just decide they want to do something different?
They work through their guidance counselor. As a junior, I would like to attend the commercial cooking program at BOCES. Okay, approved,
And basically, we would generally approve anybody who makes that request?
by and large, yes.
The earliest someone would do that would be high school.
Typically, juniors and seniors are the primary kids that we send.
But there are younger students that do this.
There occasionally are younger students, sometimes IEP kids might be attending
Right.
programs, but again, the vast majority are 11, 12.
Okay. Technology. Unfortunately, Patrick couldn't be here with us today, so I'm going to pretend to know about technology. Some of what's changed, we have our completed upgraded website that went live at the beginning of the school year. We're fully one-to-one, basically because of the pandemic, but we're fully one-to-one at this point and want to plan to continue that way. Every smart board in the district has been replaced with a new one. We've migrated email PowerSchool up to the cloud, and every employee now uses multi-factor authentication in order to log into the programs. Every piece of software, for the most part, is now on ClassLink, which makes it easier for parents. Our network core has been split, so every wide area thing has been replaced at this point. We added 24/7 network monitoring, and they provide daily, weekly, monthly backups for all of our data, district-wide. We've done a lot with security over the last couple of years, only because of what's going on out there in the industry. Here is just a narrative of what took place. And I just wanted to say the word CrowdStrike Falcon is complete. It's up there. But yeah, we've done a lot of things to comply with the new regulations as well as protect the data of the district. Here are some of the hardware upgrades that took place. Again, we replaced every single smart board. We have an annual replacement of desktop PCs, and we also upgrade our Chromebooks, our iPads, and I'll show you when we talk about the Smart Schools bond, what we're looking for as far as spending in that area.
Victor?
Yeah.
The 250 desktops that we replaced, that's just what we replaced?
Correct.
Where do we have where are all the desktops? If everybody's got iPads, where are all
Well,
the
you have,
desktops?
every teacher has a desktop, every.
Oh, in their room, they're not using Chrome, they're all using every.
There's a desktop in every single classroom.
You need to
Yeah, Unilabs.
project onto a smart board, you need
Yeah,
this.
okay.
And all, obviously, administration, clerical, et cetera.
Hi, question about first, the device insurance. So.
Yes.
We're charging.
Yes.
For device, so we're collecting the money?
No, the parents pay directly for the insurance.
Oh, it's direct?
Yeah.
So it's not going through?
No.
Okay. so-
No, we're just providing them
Got it.
where to go.
Private service. And then, for the, technology staff member throughout the day for, the second line item?
Yes.
Is it just a rotating staff member that mans that desk?
The man by technology, throughout the day. Oh, so, any teacher,
Okay.
employee that has a question about how to use something.
Okay.
If there's a ticket that goes to technology and they send someone, I think, I don't know if it's primarily just one person. I think it's kind of scattered. Not scattered, like within the department, they switch off.
Okay, but it's a technology staff member that's
Yeah.
doing it, okay. And then, we are using, a new cell mechanic to repair and extend the life of our devices. What is the cost of that, do you know?
I'm sorry, which line are you looking at?
The third,
You can still connect your parents and the both of our devices.
sorry, these are.
No idea what that is.
Questions, yeah.
I'll be honest.
Okay.
I'll find out for you.
No worries,
Is that it for that slide?
so that's all.
Okay. Computer technology, software, Perischool has been migrated off premises and it's up in the cloud. That just got completed within the last couple of weeks, I believe. We did the website redesign and transition to computer-based testing.
Sorry, so I was just gonna ask for the Otis platform, 100 videos translated into simplified English, what is that for?
I will find out.
I can help you out a little bit if you want.
Do you know?
Yeah, Otis is a professional development platform, so, the children and staff, so a lot of these have been translated, so, parents can watch them at home and things like that.
I'm sorry, like what kind of videos? I mean,
Educate, instructional, they're instructional videos.
do we see this, getting less, like, over the years, or is this something that you think is gonna continue?
No, I think it's
The need,
something
the
we're
need
kind of
for the
ramping up,
translation.
I think it's going to continue.
It's gonna
Yeah.
continue?
I don't see the need going down. You know, maybe someone will work off it, but then new people will come in.
Right, well, that's kind of where my head is at, I feel like, I mean, once again, I don't have the numbers, and I don't know if you guys have the numbers, but, do we have less people coming in now that, would need a service like this?
No.
Compared to what it was 3 years ago, 5 years ago?
No.
I feel like it's, the numbers have gone down, no?
I would say the opposite. I would say they probably, you mean as far as, non-English speaking?
Yeah, well, not English speaking, but like, you know, and of course, we have new people always coming into the district, but, over the years, obviously, they're picking up the language every year, so I feel like the need would be going down. Right, okay.
The students are, not necessarily.
The parents.
Yeah.
I understand, okay, makes sense.
Sam, did you have a question?
It's actually the next page. I was looking for it.
Security and redundancy, we're utilizing and deploying different areas to help in that. We did the cloud storage, and we're migrating all student records to WebEdge Portfolio Plus, which is cloud hosted as well.
What's WebEdge student records versus PowerSchool?
I'll let you know.
Thank you.
Well, I think PowerSchool probably more grades, right, because
Um,
the records of the.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Transcript,
Are they, I thought they're moving to WebEdge from PowerSchool, it's a migration.
student records, that could be the transcript program, which is not in PowerSchool.
WebEdge, Patrick's on standby.
Thank
WebEdge
you.
is the document storage. That's part of PowerSchool. It's the document.
It's part of PowerSchool.
Portion.
It's document storage.
WebEdge is backed into PowerSchool.
Did that sound confident when I said it?
I know who's watching.
It's part of PowerSchool?
Part of.
I'll.
Well, yes,
Yeah.
not vital.
Oh, good, more technology. Again, this is similar, desktop refresh for our PCs, continued replacement of Chromebooks and iPads, and I'll talk about the smart schools on the next slide. These are the software additions.
Did we get rid of any major software programs either?
Not that I'm aware of, but we actually purchased a software that could check the use of other software.
I saw that, yeah.
So if the software is not being used, we will look to cancel some of the ongoing subscriptions.
And I know you're not the right person, but you talked about it 2 slides ago.
Come on.
Who's the person to discuss moving to online testing and the protocols for that?
Hi, Ivy. Nice to
That's
nice
a
to see you.
state mandate.
It's,
What's the state mandate?
By 2026, there will be no more paper and pencil tests. So it's starting to phase in, and we decided to go all in, except for grade 3 mathematics, which was, this year will still be a paper and pencil test. But we've already done practice online testing. We did it grades 3 through 8 in January, and it went extremely well.
And what are the security protocols we use for online testing? Like, I know that when we did the state testing, I think you mandated that students use a school-issued device to do the state testing. My understanding is though you don't require school-issued devices for regular in-class testing. So my question is, what security protocols are we using for in-class testing, non-state mandated, to properly securitize those tests?
That's a Patrick question.
Okay. But in-class tests, we're not requiring students to use school-issued devices, is that correct?
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. State testing, absolutely.
I know state testing, I know that at least some classes, they're not requiring devices, which I know also causes problems. Okay. Because then I didn't know if there was some software we were buying to help monitor in-class testing.
Are we done with that slide?
We're done?
Patrick. For 23-24. Instruction, we are now offered, this is, again, we discussed before, the staff trainer who goes to the various classrooms for assistance with any of the softwares. We'll be purchasing ClassLink Analytics Plus. This is the usage data I was talking about before. And we will continue to use Model School Days through BOCES to provide additional professional development.
Can I add one sentence from Patrick?
Sure.
Students cannot use their own devices to take tests. They must use a school-issued device, and they take it in a kiosk mode. So they're only able to access whatever that test is.
Okay. Thank you, Patrick. Smart Schools Investment Plan, we discussed this briefly a couple of meetings ago, where this is the rest of the funding that's left in the Smart Schools bond. And what we found, we were looking to do like network projects, but the issue we were finding is that the state took upwards of a year to approve projects, and at that point, what we were recommending was pretty much already obsolete. So what we're doing is putting in for Chromebooks, which is a much simpler, and if it takes a year and a half, we're okay with that. We will have the need to purchase Chromebooks in the 24-25 school year. Okay, so this is the budget associated with everything I intelligently spoke about over the last 20 minutes. And salary, everything's pretty basic. We're looking at a dip in budget for BOCES. You'll see in 2021, that was the COVID year where we purchased all of the additional Chromebooks so we could go one-to-one for our students. And at the end of the year, again, we reviewed to see if there's any other hardware things we could do through BOCES. We prefer to do it through BOCES because we get BOCES aid on it the following year. So whenever we can do something through BOCES, we try to. I'm going to take a break and invite John Mankiewicz up here to talk about athletics.
Okay, thank you for having me here this evening. The Jericho Athletic Program continues to be strong.
Don't stand in front of the speaker.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay. As of right now, at the high school level, we have 31 varsity programs, 16 junior varsity programs, and we have 2 programs that are labeled JV9 or JVB. The middle school program has 30 teams throughout the course of the year. 8 of those are separate 7th and 8th. Okay, and then we have 14 that are combined 7th and 8th grade programs. Okay, we have a very, very offering. You can see from the fall season, okay, going from boys badminton all the way down to girls volleyball. Okay, we offer varsity and JV levels wherever we possibly can. I would say there's not a sport up there that has a JV where we don't offer the JV. So we offer that at every level. 3 seasons for the high school, and you'll see in the spring season, we've added unified basketball for this coming year. So that is a special needs program where we combine students in our special needs classes with our general education students, and they're gonna play competitive basketball games against other schools in a school setting. It's a lot of fun. We went last year to watch some of the schools play, and it actually, this year, it culminates with a big play day with all 14 schools that have it. And Hank doesn't even know this yet, but we're gonna host it here at Jericho, please. According to the Unified Basketball people, they would love to come here and have it. And it's going to be a great program. We're really excited for it. So that's a new ad for this year.
Do you put those games on the weekly schedule?
Yes.
like you said?
Of course. Okay, we have middle school. Our athletic participation, it's strong at all our levels. You can see, okay, in the middle school in the fall, we had 207 athletes. Winter 1 and winter 2. Winter 2 is the smallest of the seasons for the middle school. And then in spring, we're back up to over 200. High school, you can see 363 in the fall, okay, coming down to 339 in the spring. Any given day after school, you can have over 500 kids participating in the sport here in Jericho.
John, how does that look over the last 2 or 3 years?
Our numbers are definitely continue to grow. We really rebounded from the COVID years where, kids were hesitant to get back into playing. And at this point, our teams are doing great with our numbers. Okay, so highlights of over the last 5 years, what have we added? Okay, we constantly look at our programs, see what works for us at Jericho and what we can add. So as we talked about unified basketball, we've offered JV girls badminton, boys badminton, JV girls lacrosse, and middle school girls badminton. And we're happy to say that football will return on its own next year back at Jericho. We will no longer be combined with Plainview. So we will have our own varsity and JV team next year.
John,
Yes?
have we cut any sports or any sports on the bubble?
No. No. Okay, our facility and enhancements over the last 3 years has been outstanding. A big thanks to Michael Hahn and Victor and the Board of Ed for funding all of this. Okay, we did the tennis courts this past summer, the turf, the track, over the last year and a half. Okay, and then this past summer, we totally refabricated Sam Springer Gymnasium. We got rid of the original floor, so brand new floor, bleachers. Okay, schools walk in, it's a much better place for our kids to play. It's a brighter area, and it's been outstanding.
One last question. How many tennis courts do we have?
8,
We only have 8.
yes, only. It's a lot.
Oh, so you want to convert one of them into pickleball?
No. Next.
That's not my question. I'm not.
People make pickleball out to be this new inventive sport. We've been playing pickleball in physical education classes forever.
So we did pickleball.
So it's great. Then we play indoors.
We play out.
We can't get rid of a court. We have 2 middle school teams, so we need all our courts. So program highlights over the last few years. Okay, we continue to be a New York State Scholar School of Distinction. That means every one of our varsity programs is a New York State Scholar Athlete team, which means you have to take a certain percentage of your varsity roster. Okay, every one of those kids has over a 90 average, making them and the team Scholar Athletes. Okay, we're the only school district in New York that has that many teams in a row. Okay, there are teams that come in and out. We do it every year consistently. Okay. Obviously, our boys soccer team always continues to be strong. We've had All-Americans in soccer and track. This past year, 2 board meetings ago, we introduced you to Rachel Yang, our New York State champion in diving, and her younger brother, who's in 9th grade, is at the state championships right now, and there's a good chance he might win as well. So it runs in the family there. Long Island championships, we've had boys badminton 6 consecutive Nassau County championships. Okay, we kind of win. We do a lot of winning here at Jericho. It's really nice. Our teams are very competitive. Even the ones that aren't as successful, they're always competitive.
John, before I go to this slide, can you just talk about the introduction of crew?
Yes, so for next year, so we've had talks on and off about the addition of crew. Now, crew is not a New York State high school sport. It's more on the club scene. There are a lot of schools that are within our area that are offering it. There's about 5. So we've talked about the possibility of adding it. We've had conversations with the Oyster Bay Rowing Club. Just the other day, we finally came to a decision on how we would do this. And we're happy to say that we're going to be able to offer a crew next spring, okay, for 20 student athletes who wish to be a part of it. And we'll have that meeting with parents probably towards the end of this spring to let them know how it's gonna run. We're modeling our program, how we do it with Syosset. The good thing in all of this was this final decision became after we did our budget. And we've looked at the budget and kind of configured ways, okay, with how we do our athletic trainer salary in different seasons and how we can move money so that we won't need to add any more money to the athletic budget in order to do this.
We buy boats.
Contingencies.
We buy boats.
No. So what we're paying for them to be part of the Oyster Bay rowing club. Okay, so they'll be along with our kids, Syosset uses them, Oyster Bay uses them. So the kids will be able to join the club, and then we'll talk with the parents about what their responsibility will be.
And that'll be 5 days a week busing them up to the Oyster Bay.
We bus them up, okay, it's up to them to be bused back. That's how Syosset does it.
It's up to them to get home.
Yes,
Where is Oyster Bay, Rowing Club?
Oyster
I
Bay.
know Oyster Bay, I mean, like.
Right next to Theodore Roosevelt Park.
Okay.
It's the left before you get into the actual park, before the.
Yes.
entrance.
Thanks, John.
That's it.
This is the budget for athletics. If you look at the top line, you can see in 1920, we canceled the spring season. The salaries reflected that it was much lower. In 2021, we had limited athletics throughout that year. Last year, we were pretty much back to normal as we are this year.
And how many of our coaches are full-time teachers versus how many of them just come in here to coach sports?
I can get you that number, but I will say this, from the time I started here, to now, the vast majority are now either teachers here or teachers somewhere else, where we used to have to hire a lot of out-of-district people. We're getting more and more in-house coaches.
And do most coaches, how do coaches, I don't wanna say get replaced, like, there's turnover, like, same coaches and coach from year to year. Is that typically a decision made by management? Is that typically a decision made by the coach saying, I no longer want to do
We
this anymore?
evaluate our coaches, we have those conversations. If we don't feel that things are going the right way, we try to work with them and have them improve. There have been times we have released coaches, and there are times where coaches just say they've had enough. So it's kind of both ways.
Do tenure laws play into anything with coaching?
Tenure laws do not, but within our contract with the coaches, there is something in there about, if you're here for 3 years or more,
As a coach or as a teacher?
as a coach.
Oh, and if you're as a coach.
They're on a 1-year contract.
Okay, but if you're a coach for 3 years, if you can finish that sentence.
If you're a coach for 3 years, then there's more of a due process than there is, before that.
But it's looser than New York State tenure laws, but there's a process that needs to go through.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, on to transportation. Personnel services, director, dispatcher, mechanics remain the same. Full-time drivers, we're gonna try to bring another route in for next year from first student. And when we look at the budget for equipment and bus purchases, I'll explain that a little more as well. We have universal busing. What that means is every student in the district is entitled to transportation no matter where you live, in conjunction with the school. Many school districts have, walking within a half a mile, quarter mile, et cetera. We do not have those parameters. 80 students attend private and parochial schools, which is actually down, I would say, pretty significantly from prior years. I think on average, I think we're about 105 usually, and I'm not sure what the reason is, other than Jericho is wonderful and they want to bring their kids back here. But we are down to 80 students, which is good for a part of our transportation budget. Out-of-district placements transported at district expense, and BOCES programs, fine arts and technical schools are part of this program as well. The 5510 code is more of our staff, our employees, and the 5540 code on the right is more on first student and contract expenditures. Great picture, Warren. Contracted services, so we have the 5 schools within our district, middle school, high school, 3 elementary schools, 23 private and parochial schools, and 5 special education schools. And First Student provides 19 of the large buses, 28 vans, and 7 per pupil. What a per pupil is if a bus is going to a particular private school, and there are a couple of students from Roslyn or another district, if it works within that particular route, we would get charged per pupil as opposed to purchasing an entire bus for a school year. These are the anticipated for next year. The only thing that's different are the vans versus the in-district runs, and that's what the +1 was, going from 13 to 14 on the drivers. So vans would go down to, and we would increase to on the in-district runs, but overall relatively flat as of now. But again, once Lorianne does the routes during the summer, we try to build in some contingencies to, allow for that.
You said I think somewhere it says we're buying 2 vans, so that's why the vans
That'll be
go down
later
by
on.
2. So so those districts go down by 2, but then you're also adding 1 full-time driver. So how does that?
We budgeted 13 for this year, I would say we're at 12, maybe, well, not including the recent discussion we had, but,
We also are putting a bus on the line that's a spare bus. Right now, if we have a bus breakdown with our in-district vehicles, we do not have a spare bus. So that's why there'll be 2 buses and 1 driver.
I understand, but if
Is that the question?
Well, sort of, but if we're adding 2 vans, we're adding those 2 vans to take away 2 routes from First Student.
well, no, hold on. We're always kind of a year behind. So the 2 vans that are budgeted for next year's budget, we won't get them, like, the ones from last year, we didn't
We
even
still
get
didn't
yet.
get them yet, yeah.
Got it. I understood, sorry.
Okay? It's a long lead time. Normally, pre-pandemic, I would say we got them in the fall. But like I said, we ordered these at around the
So
same time.
Those 2 routes that we're taking in district are from purchases from last year.
Correct, that we didn't even get the buses yet.
Exactly,
Yeah.
Understood.
Okay, so all of the buses and vans are assigned multiple trips. So for example, you'll have 1 bus doing the elementary, middle school, and high school, and we try to combine, and Lorianne does a great job scheduling, and I want to add that she basically rips up this year's schedule and starts from scratch every year in order to be as efficient as possible, and we'll do the routes in the most efficient way, each year. But again, she tries to put pieces together to minimize the cost as much as possible. Stop arm camera loss. So this did go into effect. All of our buses are currently equipped with them. The First Student buses are 75%?
Better.
Better? Okay. So we're getting there as far as being fully equipped. I think there was an article a week ago. The town of Hempstead signed on with Bus Patrol, which is the company that does we've got the picture of the vehicle, we'll send it to the driver, etc. What happened, I wish they did it the way they did in Suffolk. Suffolk did it on a county-wide level from the beginning, and it worked very smoothly. In Nassau County did not pick up the ball, so now it was up to the individual towns to do it. We're waiting for town of North Hempstead and town of Oyster Bay because that would be within our district. But now, from what I understand, Nassau County is saying, oh wait, we want some of the funds that the tickets will come in at, so now they're getting involved. So we're hopeful by the end of the school year, it will be up and running.
We hope.
We hope.
Oh, we're not even up and running, when you said 75%, I thought.
No,
You said 75%
they're equipped.
installed.
Yes, they're installed. Installation will definitely be done. They'll be done probably in the next month.
Before the end of the month, right?
It's a matter of they're installed, but if the towns or the county didn't sign on and it's not complete, they're not sending the ticket anyone.
And who do we need to get signed on, Nassau County?
Either the town of Oyster Bay and the town of North Hempstead or Nassau County. Nassau County would cover the whole county, but they haven't they're not done signing off on it with bus patrol.
I would have read the article, and there's some article in.
That's what I just said.
12,000, but that was.
That's the town of Hempstead, not North Hempstead, town of Hempstead,
Victor, who covers the cost of camera installation and maintenance?
bus patrol. Correct?
Yes,
So it doesn't cost us anything?
It doesn't cost us anything,
0.
even the ones on our buses didn't cost us anything.
That was my question.
A lot. But we don't get any fees?
We do not get any of the fees. It would likely go to, the towns and/or county and bus patrol.
Correct.
As long as it's not costing us.
No, it's not.
just the safety
Yeah.
initiative.
Yeah, I mean, we want it up and running,
No,
because
it
it definitely is
it-
safe.
no, it definitely, keeps people from, passing these stop signs,
Yeah.
keeps our kids safe, because again, we're not gonna see that revenue.
Yeah.
But nor should we, be shouldering the cost of it.
Right. So we budgeted for 2 30-passenger vans and the technology that goes with that. And again, we likely won't see them until next spring.
Where do those show up in the line item?
I'll show you when we
So
get
a
to it.
van is a short bus or like a shorter bus? Or-
Yeah.
It's a 30-passenger, it's not a van, it's a, it's like a small bus, yeah. We originally, when we did the budget, we were planning on 3 with that dollar amount, but the prices have increased significantly.
20%.
So I didn't want to promise 3, so we're promising 2, and we'll see what happens. These are the cooperative services, so our garage, we have intermunicipal agreements with these other districts. They send their small buses to us, and we do repairs and inspections on them.
Where does that
Small bus
revenue
the same
show
as
up?
a van?
I'm sorry?
She asked first.
Yeah.
Is a small bus the same as a van, or that's different?
A van, no, a van is a van, a small bus is a small
Wait,
bus.
so we're buying vans or smaller buses?
We're buying small buses, 30-passenger
So
small
like
buses.
the same size buses that are coming to,
Yeah, we do small buses and vans, right, from those
We
districts?
buy 30 and 44 passenger buses. The smaller vans are like 18 passenger, we don't buy those.
No, but are we doing work from those districts on those
Yes,
buses?
for these
on the
districts,
vans?
yes, there's 23 vehicles that we do.
And it's a mix of small, we can't do the large buses in our garage,
They don't fit.
so that, we don't have a big enough garage.
so do we have to send our large buses somewhere else?
Say it again?
Do we have to send our large buses somewhere else?
We send our coach-like buses to Nesco to get inspections, but we do majority of the maintenance outside the bay. But we can't get an inspector to come in because there are requirements for the walk-around to do an inspection through the DOT. So we do everything with the DOT inspections, we'll go out to Nesco.
The revenue shows up in miscellaneous revenue later on, in the next presentation.
Any ideas of ballpark meaningful number relative to what our cost for transportation is, or is it?
Oh, it's definitely offsetting some of the cost of the garage and the employees associated with the mechanics. 75,000? Is that a fair number?
It's good.
Those contracts.
Thanks, Maria.
Those contracts have yearly increases to
Yeah.
account for labor costs and
Yeah.
so forth.
We redo them every year?
Every year.
And do we, are these all-inclusive contracts, or we bill them for parts and everything?
Parts.
Yeah. We
Parts
bill
and
them
labor.
for maintenance on parts, but it's not a great
Markup.
markup, right? We don't mark up the parts at all, and we are relatively fair with the mechanical services.
So it's a labor rate they're essentially
Yes.
contracting? Okay.
It's like
Plus
one way
parts,
for
but
both
they're
of us.
paying
No, they're paying for the parts,
Yeah.
whatever the cost of the parts
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Why are we not marking up the parts? I'm sure
Because
there's
it-
an administrative
because
cost
it's
that
other
goes
school
into.
districts. It's other school
But
districts, so
there's,
we're,
right, but there's like a cost that goes into getting the parts, calling, there's,
we have a labor cost that's associated with each job. So if there's a half hour of administrative work, that will be included in that.
In the rate for the repair.
Yeah. These are the codes associated that, this is one of the areas I talked about percentage-wise is a relatively significant increase. This year, we budgeted what we thought was a meaningful percentage at 4%. And again, when we did this budget, it was prior to the significant inflation that we saw. And we ended up with this year a 7% increase because it's based on the transportation CPI.
You're
So
talking about the contract.
I'm talking about the contract, the 5540 code, which is the biggest number here. So we had to make up the difference between the 4% and the 7%, and then I budgeted an additional 7%, assuming that will be the transportation CPI for next year. So I built that in, and again, that's why the budget is going up there. The salary line increased because if you look at the expenditure, it increased significantly. And it's been very helpful to, we don't want to go completely, all our own transportation, all our own drivers, but it's good to have a number of your own drivers and your own buses, because if something happens with first student, we could easily go in and make that up and substitute in certain areas.
And I know you told us last year, those drivers are full-time employees with full benefits, pensions, and everything, or they're independent contractors?
Our drivers, they're our employees. I believe, they're full-time, they're considered full-time. And actually, we have 2 or 3 of them that are helping us out immensely in the cafeteria because of those hours in between the morning route and the afternoon route. So that helped us kind of fill some of the holes there.
Are they tenured employees?
With civil service, it's a little different. It's called,
There is a form of tenure for those employees. It's a 90-day period when they're first employed. They get to what's called a tenure, but the process for discipline is a little bit different for a first-year person than a 5-year person. And it's really a due process issue. So it's not a guarantee of employment, but they do call it tenure. It's really a due process requirement. If we have to discipline somebody and in the worst case scenario let them go, it's a due process that we have to go through. And it's not a teacher-like tenure at all. It's a civil service tenure.
Okay.
all right, any other questions on this slide? Okay, moving on to the big slide with the employee benefits. I spoke about this since January. And if you look at the third from the bottom line, it says health/dental. Dental is a few $100,000. It's all primarily health insurance. And again, this, as of January, our monthly bill increased 18%. And that's a combination of active employees going up between 13 and 15%, depending on if they're doing individual or family health insurance, in combination with the 22% increase in MediPrime, which is for 65 and older retirees. While the cost of those is much less, again, a 22% increase in that area is significant, and it averaged out to about an 18% increase on our monthly bill. I said earlier that last year we had about a 900,000 surplus in that particular code. The 16,160,000 budgeted for this year will end up spending close to 16,400,000 as of now. Again, that could fluctuate, depending on if someone resigns, if we have to hire someone in between now and then. But right now, we're going to be a couple $100,000 over. I think we could cover it with other employee benefit codes within this slide. Not that I think, I know we will. But again, that's significantly tighter, and that's why you're seeing going from 16.1 to 18.7. And that's the biggest driver in our budget this year, that one line item, $2.6 million. The other areas, ERS, not significant. TRS actually went down a little bit. I'm concerned about that for next year because they are a year behind with the stock market and the smoothing of the 5 years. And last year we didn't end at a good place compared to December of 21. So we're concerned about TRS for next year's budget. Social Security, workers' comp, life insurance, no significant changes there, but this is definitely the biggest budget driver.
Is this everybody in the district?
Yeah.
Civil service employees?
Yes.
Administration?
Yes.
This is the total bill. Do you have any idea for the health and dental, how many total people are included in that?
Well, don't
If you
forget,
if you- It's okay.
yeah, I'm not gonna answer that because it's retirees also are in here.
Right, but I can send you an email,
Yeah.
just break that out, got it. And who do we buy the health insurance through? We buy it as a collective, or we just buy it as a Jericho
It's-
School District?
It's a New York State health insurance program, the Empire Plan. I would say 90% of districts on Long Island and southern New York State goes through that. All state employees are through that, the New York State Health Insurance Program, the Empire Plan. So,
And so basically, every school district, that all of our neighbors maybe have the same,
yes,
have the same cost.
yes.
And
There's an East End cooperative on Long Island that they do it, they have a cooperative among a few districts out east. And then upstate, there are a few different cooperatives.
New York metropolitan area, Orange, Rockland, Westchester, the New York metro area, 99% of districts are in NISHIP. Whereas when you go upstate, around the cities, they're NISHIP, but you'll get some of the rural areas where there are groups of rural districts that cost of health insurance is less, so they're self-insuring, or looking at alternatives outside of NISHIP.
And I'll give you a little of what we're gonna talk about in the next meeting during the budget summary. All of the expenditures we talked about over the last 3 months account to a budget increase of 3.90%. And fortunately, a lot of districts got an influx of state aid. There was an article last week that we do not fall into that category. There were districts that literally got $30 to $40 million additional state funding.
that article was accurate?
I'm sorry?
That article was accurate? It was on my thing. The amount
That-
they had in there for Jericho was accurate though?
Yes.
Okay.
It was, I think it was 2.9 million.
2.96?
Yeah. So our tax levy proposed increase is 2.77%. So the expenditure is 3.9, tax levy 2.77 is based on this budget. And the reason why the tax levy increase is thankfully lower than the expenditure increase is because of the influx of state aid. I think Newsday is going to do a follow-up article based on the expenditure side of the budget now, because of the health insurance, transportation costs, inflations. You're going to see districts, I would say 3.9 is probably at the lower end on the expenditure side. You're going to see districts 4 or 5% on the expenditure side increases because of that. And then in addition to that, transportation, some districts with transportation, they're being forced to go out to rebid. They're seeing 20, 25, 30% increases. And there are some districts, we're not in this boat, but with special education, they had an influx of special education, and they're seeing a third hit on the expenditures of special education. But again, we're not in that particular boat, but again, health insurance has been significant. And one of the things I have not that I have an issue with, we're very thankful for the state aid that we're receiving next year, and it was extremely generous, but $2.6 million increase in health insurance, our state aid increase was $2.9 million. That's basically where the state aid increase is going, and we have other increases, throughout the budget.
Again, I don't know if these data is accurate. They put in there the 2.961 million, but they said that was a 2.3% increase. That represented 2.3% of our budget.
The $2.9 million increase?
They said it was 2.3%
Yeah, that makes sense,
of the
right?
budget. So if they're giving us.
The increase represents
Yeah, if they're
2.3.
giving us 2.3% increase in our budget, why is it only equating to about a 1% reduction in our budget increase? So like, you're saying total expenses are going up 3%.
I'll show you at the next meeting.
You got it.
That'll be when I have this budget summary for the expenditures and the revenue summary also. I just wanted to give everyone kind of idea of where we're gonna be. Any other questions? I think that was the last one.
What's union welfare?
Oh, no, it was-
Union welfare for 350.
That is the JTA.
No, it's on the next one. That's, sorry, it's on the next one.
Oh, okay. So on this particular budget, so the GASB 87, that's what I was talking about with the copiers before, it got re-accounted to debt service. Interest on the tin, I kept flat, I know interest rates are up, I'm thinking of trying to maybe shorten the period of time of borrowing, and I'm even more hopeful that the state allows us to use reserves from our own reserves as opposed to borrowing. Yes. I decreased the transfer to school lunch a little bit. We didn't get through a whole, even a half a year with Aramark at this point, so I just wanted to be better safe than sorry. Transfer to special aid, $350,000. I kept that flat. There may be a piece that we have to use for UPK if the allotment stays at 5,400 and the cost per student is at 5,800. That $400 difference will equate to about $40,000 for the 5 classes. And you were asking about union welfare, that's in the JTA contract. It's a number of FTEs divided, multiplied by a dollar amount, and they use that for ancillary benefits. Vision. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, March 16th, full budget review of revenues and expenditures, and March 30th, adoption of the new budget. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.